Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo saranto suchedoye alahadi samyao sanpatoshe. 无上甚深微妙法，百千万劫难遭遇。我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered even in billions of eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. All right. Venerable Master, Dharma friends, welcome to our Sutra lecture today. My name is Hung Shi. It is Sunday, August 15th. We're halfway through the month of August here in Queensland, Australia. It's Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening in Berkeley, California, where many of you are listening in. And it is, if you're listening in China, we're already into the 15th. Welcome to everyone. I'm delighted that we can offer a translation into Mandarin of the words I'm speaking in English, and also we have a Vietnamese translation taking place due to the kindness and the vigor of our volunteer staff who are willing to put their time and effort into translating this lecture into both Mandarin and into Vietnamese. 欢迎大家来参听我们的大放广佛华严经法会讲座。So, let's get started. This today, for me, is a significant day because it's the last lecture in the series that began 6 years ago. We've actually reached the end of the 10 Stages chapter. That's a milestone for me personally. I can remember clearly saying to myself, probably a decade ago, if I ever had the opportunity to explain the 10 stages, the Shi Di Pin, 10 stages chapter, I could pretty much say my life has reached, has been significant, you know, that it matters. Just to be able to put that into the air. And it was, at that time, it was an unfulfilled wish. It was a mountain far and high. And today, to be able to say we've finished it, that this is the last text lecture, where we're explaining. What we're going to do after today, that is to say starting next week, I'll talk about in just a bit. All right, to get us started, we're going to come back to page 98. I'm going to zoom up to the first page. Right here. We bring our 5-stringed friend here. This is the Dharma Wheel Banjo by Ashoka Banjos. It's gone out of tune since I tuned it 5 minutes ago. We've had some rain, some surprising rain recently, and this instrument, being quite an organic device, responds to humidity. Suitable for invoking the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas of the Flower Garland Assembly. We're going to do that. And we do it in Chinese, do it 7 times, and that's the melody, so please join. Namo Da Fa Wang Fo Huan Jing Then we slide back to the last page in our manuscript here. I should mention, for those of us listening who are bibliophiles and haunters of libraries and things like that, this is the work of some volunteer hands who have access to Chinese language desktop publishing software, kind of the Chinese equivalent of InDesign or what did it used to be? The first one was Quark Express, and before that was, not before Adobe, it was Aldus PageMaker. See, I'm an old timer. Aldus PageMaker. Aldus was bought by Adobe. PageMaker was king. It was unique to the Macintosh for a while, and they had a PC version, and it allowed you on your computer at home to make books that were suitable. They could be adapted into professional printing machines and create a book, but you did the layout. That was amazing. So we have a volunteer who is quick with Chinese language desktop publishing software, and she takes the original Chinese characters here, the Hanzi, and then prints them out into Hanyu pinyin, into the ABCDs with the appropriate tone marks. And on one page, then on the other page, here's the English, lo and behold. And just to give a perspective, to have a copy of the Avatamsaka Sutra in any language whatsoever is rare, is special. This text is huge and vast and hard to come by. Only special libraries, usually in monasteries or in universities or museums, would keep a copy. And that was in what became the parent language, which was Chinese, although, mind you, the Chinese version was translated out of Sanskrit, an Indian language. So this is a millennium-long, thousands of years story of how this text comes to our desktop today, to your YouTube screen or to your Zoom screen or however you're watching it. It's kind of miraculous that it's here at all. And we have it in English. And ultimately it's men and women who said, I want this wisdom text available. I'm going to sacrifice to make it possible. So our teacher is one of those people, Master Hsuan-Hua, who spent 9 years giving 90 minutes of his every single day to share with us his insights into the sutra, to put his jeweler's loupe, a brilliant light shining on these texts, to make sense of them, to reveal their secrets, to unpack their complexities, their depths, and here it is with commentary. And so some of us, that first generation of Master Hua's English language disciples, said, right, we want to make the most of that gift that he gave us. So that's how this happens to be here on the page. And as I speak, it's being translated into Vietnamese because the Chinese Mahayana form found a rich home in the fertile Buddhist soil of Vietnam, ancient Buddhist traditions of Vietnam, and also Korea. Korea became the home of the Avatamsaka School after the Song dynasty in China after the 12th century, when it was no longer, 11th century actually, it was no longer available in China. So, boy, this is a text with a history, don't you know? And so now here it is, and we're planting it down currently in the soil of Australia, and also in California and wherever YouTube and Zoom reach around the globe. So, pretty special that we have it. And of the entire sutra, the 10 stages chapter, this very chapter, is one of the true treasures. This is the ABCs of the Bodhisattva path. This is how a Bodhisattva comes into being and matures and flowers into this jewel of humanity known as an awakened being. Okay, so that's just a word about what we're looking at and how important it is. We have 1, 2, 3 stanzas. Look at that. 1, 2, 3, and it's over. It's done. So let's start with the Chinese here. There it is. And because it's a verse that was chanted, not spoken, we're going to put a melody to it. I'll invite you to call and response. I'll throw it out. You're welcome to throw it back if you care to. And then we'll try to do that in English. All right, here we go. 十恒超十法心出，十恒超十法心出，持戒第二，禅第三，持戒第二，禅第三，恒经第四，成就五，恒经第四成就五，愿生第六观传七，愿生第六观传七。Move it. Struggling for real estate. There we go. Of 10 practices that transcend the world, first is the resolve. Of 10 practices that transcend the world, first is the resolve. Holding precepts is the second. Dhyana is the third. Holding precepts is the second. Dhyana is the third. The fourth is purifying conduct. The fifth is accomplishment. The fourth, purifying conduct. The fifth is accomplishment. Rising from conditions is the sixth. Threading through is seventh. Arising from conditions is the sixth. Threading through is seventh. Okay, a little bit of torturous prosody there, text melody making, but we make it, we do it. So, what is this? This is Buddhist shorthand. Look at this. What has happened is our speaker, Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva, he's the one who's voicing this text. He gives us a one-word summary of all 10 grounds. He's got it down to one word. This couldn't be more essential, right? The verse part summarizes the prose part, and here in the verses, Vajra Treasury has put it into a single word. What is it? Look, Shi Heng Chao Shi. 10 practices, leap over world, making resolution first. Holding precepts number 2, Chan, that's the word of Zen. There is that famous word Zen in this Chinese original form, Chan. Holding precepts 2, Chan number 3. Pure practice, number 4. Accomplishment, 5. Born of conditions, number 6. Threading through, 7. Right? This is really, really essential. We have anybody who's paying attention to your Mandarin, anybody who's in Chinese class, 出 is another word for 一, 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7. There it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, right there. Of 10 practices that transcend the world, first is the resolve. So this is Bodhisattvas. They want to go beyond. They want to transcend the mundane while staying rooted thoroughly in the world. So that transcend the world is the mind of the Bodhisattva, his or her body is firmly on terra firma, rooted right here, doesn't leave. Bodhisattvas don't leave. They are able to see through the world. They don't attach to it, but they're immersed in all of the pain, all the trouble, all the confusion that we know, that we can't see our way out of. The Bodhisattva is right there with us, and yet holding open the door that leaves the world. So first is the resolve to do that. The Bodhi resolve says, I want to become a Buddha, but I'm going to do it through helping beings unpack and understand their misery. Number 2, second stage, precepts, 10 goods, 10 evils. Number 3 is Zen. We could have done that. We could have translated Zen is number 3, you know. People go, wait a minute, Zen? I thought Zen was first. No, it's not. It's not it's the third stage. It's where the Bodhisattva masters meditation, and in the process, psychic powers arise. Third stage is where we find out what it means to be able to see into the heavens, to see into the hells, to hear the voice of a mosquito, to read minds, right? To know past lives, one's own past lives for many, 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 many lifetimes, including such things as the street you lived on, what you had for breakfast. You can see those things because they're all encoded and accessible inside, but without the dhyana, without the Zen/Chan, they're not accessible. It's as if it were software written in a coding language that you don't read. You don't know how to use it until you learn to meditate. And once your dhyana, once your Chan is strong, you suddenly C++, what are some of the other amazing coding languages? You're C, and you're just able to do it, right? You can. Okay, number 4, purifying conduct. Your practices become purified. 5 is worldly accomplishment, skills, trades, arts and crafts, medicine, all literary arts, logic, understanding the body, understanding spiritual trouble, when people get mental illness and imbalance. That's where the Bodhisattva masters all those things so that he or she can apply them in the world and understand where people are coming from so that they can teach. My story includes having been raised a Methodist, learning the hymns of John Wesley and his brother Charles. A mighty fortress is our God, a bulwark never failing. My poor translators have to keep up with me, I'm sorry. So, and then walking away from it and not loving the hymns and the culture of Protestant Christianity from England. It's a blessing in the world. It's not my tribe that I discovered. There's so much goodness there, but it just wasn't, it didn't talk to it didn't answer the questions that I had. And I was even told by my poor long-suffering Sunday school teacher that I was not allowed to ask those questions in Sunday school class. So I said, I'm going somewhere where I can. And his superior, our Methodist minister, Pastor Paul Trope, said, son, keep looking. We want you to we want you to find those answers. So what a fine, big-hearted man didn't throw me out of the church, but said, continue with your search. So why does that relate to the fifth stage and the Bodhisattva learning all his expedient skills to teach people in the world? I had been a monk for 18 years when I went back to the university for a doctorate and reconnected with my Protestant and Old Testament roots. As a scholar of religion at the Graduate Theological Union, UC Berkeley Seminary, I was able to dig into the Old Testament. And as I mentioned with Father Michael Guinan, the brilliant linguist in the Franciscans, a Franciscan friar, an OFM, Order of Friars Minor, he was, Franciscans. And he just opened up the Hebrew Scriptures in a way that made me want to know those stories. So coming back, and only after I took Father Michael's class on the Old Testament twice, just to savor it the second time, only then was I able to really understand the roots of the Protestant Reformation and what they were struggling against. How, the Reformation was political, social, religious, violent, an attempt to throw off the shackles of religion, this is the Roman Catholic Church, which had become ossified and no longer allowed the juice of the rising spirit to percolate up. And when everybody thinks of Martin Luther as the one who he's kind of the poster boy of throwing off the chains of Catholicism with his Lutheranism in Germany, but in fact throughout Europe. And John Wesley and Charles Wesley were the British manifestations of the UK, in Great Britain of that same wish to find the Spirit. And they found it in Logos, Logos. What is that? Logos is the Word with a capital W. And in the case of Christianity, it meant going back to Jesus, going back to the Gospels, those 4 books. And they were strict, only 4, never mind those Essene Gospels, never mind the Apocrypha, get rid of that stuff. But they said, we want to find the words that Jesus really spoke. That's the only true thing. This church, we throw that away. We don't want the church. The church is choking us. And so that was called the Reformation. It reformed itself. It shaped itself again. So how important was that essential moment to ensure the life of Christianity? And Roman Catholicism was rejuvenated as well by having so many of its former faithful split off. So that's the point that I want to make in my story, was not that I want to riff on religious history, church history, but only by digging into the Hebrew Scriptures and having such an awakened mentor as Father Michael Guinan, who spoke, mind you, didn't speak, he read Aramaic, Hebrew, 2 kinds of Greek, Latin, and dabbled in Sanskrit, and used all of these biblical languages to look at the Hebrew Scriptures and see that it was cut and paste from paragraph to paragraph, and centuries in between made it come alive. So here we are doing the same thing with our Avatamsaka Sutra, and saying how wonderful that with the tools of Chinese Buddhist scholarship as our foundation, we can apply our own practice, our teacher's guide with his, seeing it from, bringing it out from his own nature, and then try to put English words to it and say, this is what we think it says. Do we have a chance to understand what it means? How wonderful to be able to see it come alive in this way. It's a living tradition of human achievement and wisdom, often frustrated, often lost. The fact that the Avatamsaka School died in China at the beginning of the Song Dynasty. There were purges, and because it's part of what's called, in Chinese we call it the Jiaozong, the teaching school, i.e. the school that looks at the books instead of Chan or devotion, Pure Land, etc. It depends on those texts, and when the libraries are burned. China suffered through purges multiple times, interestingly enough, factoid, each time by an emperor named Wu. There were three major purges of Buddhism in China, and each time it was an emperor named Wu who used the army of the state to burn the monasteries, burn the libraries, behead the monks, and send them away. So this can happen when your tradition is thousands of years old, right? So anyway, the Avatamsaka School stopped in China, and it survived in Korea, but it didn't flourish the way it might have, the way the Chan School flourished, for example. So, lots of challenges to this text surviving, but most of all, it's people who don't put the effort into making it come alive. That's the biggest challenge, isn't it? Master Hua said, this is priceless treasure. You have to put your heart into keeping this text alive. And so that's why every week we spend looking at the Flower Garland Sutra. And what will happen to it here in the West, we don't know. But we're, by at least translating it and then retranslating it, trying to make the text really work for people who have no particular connection to China, but who want to know what it means in English. That's our job now. So, just to reiterate, I was able, after 18 years as a monk, to go back and look at the tradition that I was personally raised in order to be able to understand and connect with my own, community, my own Western family, who were not particularly interested in Buddhism, but maybe not even understanding much about their own roots. What I discovered as I studied religion was, certainly in Buddhism it is true, but very much so in the religions of Western Europe, Northern Europe, that many people look shallowly into their own faith. They don't ask much of their own faith. There are lots and lots of Christmas and Easter Christians who come around the church, the synagogue, only on the holidays, and so be it. That's all they need. And yet, in that same faith tradition, there are people who take the scriptures, who take their practices, who take the teachings of the tradition, their ancestral teachings, as the air they breathe. They demand that their religion feed their souls. And those are the folks who keep the traditions alive. And it's not unique to Buddhism. In Buddhism, we have lots of folks, they say, ordinarily, they don't even bother to offer incense, but when times get tough, they grab for the Buddha's feet. 平时不烧伤，即时保佛祖, right? Lots of folks. And so be it. As I say, you're never going to agree. Not everyone is going to agree about the value of religion. But for those folks who ask for more, who look deeper, to have this text available to us with Master Hua's commentary is a gift. This is a blessing. And it's, we can't let it languish, right? So, okay, dig in. to wherever people are. You have to go to where they are to learn what they understand if you're going to make it come alive. In my case, I had to revisit my own religious tradition of childhood only as an adult, as a monk, in order to understand how to interpret the sutra for people who are ready for it. Arising from conditions is the sixth. What is the sixth? That is where we learned about the 12 links of conditioned co-production, 12因缘法. And we learned that everything from the teacup in my hand and the hot water that made those curled up tea leaves release their flavor, the conditions that made that, and the conditions that made my body that drank the tea, and the chair that I'm sitting on, and the planet underneath the chair that I'm sitting on. Everything is made of conditions, of component pieces that come together temporarily. We use them like tea and like a chair and like the planet, and they go back, they fall apart. Everything is. And the Buddha, in his still meditation, he made his mind so quiet that he could see in his own body and mind a link from ignorance all the way to birth and death and rebirth and the suffering involved. He saw that ignorance is the cause, suffering is the result. Furthermore, he saw that when ignorance is banished, just the way when you shine a flashlight into a dark room, the darkness retreats, no matter how long that room has been dark. I'm going to sneeze here, excuse me. I used to have a mic that I could hit the cough button. Can't do that. So, no matter, what do they say, a room that's been dark for thousands of years loses that light, loses the darkness to a single candle. You light a single candle and it banishes the darkness no matter how many thousands of years the room has been dark. The Buddha banished the ignorance that leads all the way to suffering, and link by link, step by step, the suffering went away. So this is the sixth stage, this incredible chapter. It's dense. It doesn't yield to superficial investigation. You have to dig into it. But it's the story of creation, Buddhism's creation story, which is certainly the start of the Hebrew Scriptures. In the beginning, says Genesis, the book of Genesis, in the beginning, God made that sound. The sound was upon the waters, and things came into being. Well, Buddhism says we do that with our minds in every millisecond. We are creating the whole structure of consciousness that then discriminates self and others, rights and wrongs, me and you, the world around us, and attaches to the things that our mind creates and then goes out and suffers when those things, because of conditions, come apart. So it's an extremely powerful chapter. The sixth stage of the 10 stages chapter talks about creation and the Buddhist story. The Buddha, in his mind, saw that we're doing it. We're making it. We're second after second, thought by thought, we're building the world and pursuing it unaware that the source is inside. So we go after these bubbles of things that we desire and we can't live without and run amok as a result. So, my goodness. Threading through is the seventh. So, this stanza is a one-word description of the first 7 stages. Couldn't be more essential. One word only. First one is a resolve. Prior to this, it said vows, so the same thing. Xin, what was it? Chu, xin, fa, xin, chu, making that mind, making that thought comes first. Okay? Well, the xin is another word, thought or resolve is another word that's used for vows. Yeah, right? So, first stage, vows. Second stage, precepts. Third, meditation. Fourth, practices. Purifying your conduct, your practices. Fifth is worldly, expedient accomplishments. Seventh is how everything comes from conditions set in motion by the mind. Number 7 is how it connects to the 8th. Are we ready? Number 2, here we go. 第八志在金刚窗，第八志在金刚窗，第九观察中抽林，第九观察中抽林，第十观定随往矣，第十观定随往矣，如是得宝见清净，如是知得宝见清净。The 8th is placed upon a Vajra banner. The 8th is placed upon a Vajra banner. The 9th contemplates all the many dense thickets. The 9th contemplates all the many dense thickets. The 10th is anointing on the crown with the king's blessing. The 10th is anointing on the crown with the king's blessing. All such treasures of virtue are gradually made immaculate. All such treasures of virtue are gradually made immaculate. Okay. Number 8. It's the powerful place in the sutra where the Bodhisattva reaches this thing called irreversibility, no further retreat. What's that like? There's, just say one, on a Vajra banner. Vajra banner, that's probably opaque language. Vajra is this indestructible substance, adamantine, and it's brilliant, it shines, and a banner comes up a lot in the Avatamsaka, and I think it's from military. If you think of a say primitive, if you think of a pre-industrial society, how do you communicate with each other? Well, smoke signals, light a fire and let the smoke go up, or run up a flag, put a flag on a flagpole. When the flag is up and waving, everybody goes, oh, this is market day. Let's put our apples in a basket and take them to the crossroads and trade for what we need, honey or coffee, or we need our plow sharpened. So we'll all get at the crossroads and go to market because we saw the flag. Another flag goes up and it says, prepare because the bandits are coming. Anybody who's seen Seven Samurai, right? The flags go up and it's a signal. So a banner is a signal. If the army, you want to know whose army is taking the field, you have to carry your chuang, your flag, out onto the field, and it says Wu, it says, Zheng, or it says Lin, whoever is out there on the field. So that's the banner. And a Vajra banner is something priceless, something extremely valuable, and you know that the army or the person underneath that banner is a special spiritual being, a Vajra banner. The 8th stage, what's it like? Anybody who has climbed in the Appalachian Mountains, done mountain walking, you can walk. You don't have to use ropes and pitons to get up. The mountains are pretty much in the 6,000 foot range, 6 to 7,000. I said, I think 2 weeks ago, I was talking about Mount Washington, which is the tallest peak in the northern part of the Appalachians is the Green Mountains and the White Mountains. Mount Washington, if I'm going to say it all wrong. Let me get it right. Mount Washington is in New Hampshire, if I'm not mistaken, and I think it's 7,000 feet. Let's see here. Thank goodness for search engines. Mount Washington, USA. Okay, here it is. It's named Agiokochuk. It's the highest peak in the northeastern United States. Okay, 6,200 feet. That's 1,900 meters. Had a wind of 231 miles per hour. It's in New Hampshire, the presidential range. There we go. Thank you, search engine. So, Mount Washington is the highest peak. Most of the peaks I'm most familiar with Vermont and New Hampshire, which is where I did my hiking. Green Mountains and the White Mountains. Vermont has the Green Mountains. New Hampshire has the White Mountains in the presidential range. So as you go up these roughly 6,000-foot mountains, pretty much they're all the same height. You go through valleys that you're under a canopy of trees, and everything is shade and sunlight, and the trees are tall. There's lots of running water and lots of twitchbacks, and it's really wonderful hiking. And then you get up higher and you start to be able to look out over valleys. Now from here you can see, oh, we're getting up there. There are peaks up there, but by and large, you don't know where you're going, except you're going up. You can't see the peak. And you keep walking, and the trees start to change. They go from deciduous leaf, where the leaves fall, to conifers, where it's pine trees, where there are needles and pine cones, and they're different vegetation now, because you're higher. You're 1,000 feet higher, 2,000 feet higher. So keep on going, and at a certain point, something happens, which is you reach what's called the tree line. And as you come out of the trees, now the mountain under your feet is just rock. The water, there aren't any more springs, all the greenery is below you, and you can see, because there's nothing blocking your view, and maybe for the first time, you can see the peak. Maybe not. Maybe it's still just, you're now in rock formations, and you have to walk across ridge lines, which are really narrow, and at a certain point, there's the summit. And you can see it, and it's only half a mile ahead, and it's hard going because now the wind is blowing. And you can easily miss your step and tumble, but you can see the peak, and you know that if you keep walking, that's where you're heading, okay? The 8th stage is just like that. You have seen the peak, and your progress to Buddhahood, which is the peak, that's the summit, your progress is guaranteed. No retreat. You're going to make it. Just keep walking. Right? When you were below, you could have gone left, you could have gone right, you could have taken a side road and a side trail and gone somewhere else, because you couldn't see where you were heading. And cultivation, even from the 1st stage to the 7th stage, is like that. But when you get to the 8th stage, you come out above the tree line of ignorance and confusion, and you're on the way to the summit. You get to the summit, and there's this little disc from the U.S. Geological Survey saying you've reached the summit of mountain, summit, and it's this tall, summit, and U.S. Geological Survey. And you're there. If there's a book, you can write your name in the book on the peak and read who else has been there, and you go back down. So the 8th stage is like that. You just keep on cultivating, and you're going to get there. Now, number 9, fascinating. Why are we talking about dense thickets? If people recall, if you were with us in that section, it's interesting that Vajrabhanner picks out this piece to talk about of all that's in the 9th stage. The ninth stage has lots and lots of other stuff, but this is what it's talking about. And what is a dense thicket? This is where the Bodhisattva kind of, I guess you'd say, scolds living beings. No, it's not scolding, that's not the right word. He, if he were a doctor, you'd be looking at the charts on the glass, on the light wall, seeing the skeleton, seeing where the bones are broken, seeing where the blood vessels are crowded and maybe broken and choked off with cholesterol. You're looking at an X-ray of living beings and how hard we are to teach. What are we like? We're like a dense thicket. What's a dense thicket? Think of a hedgerow in England. You can't go through it. It's just a bramble. It's just too thick. And from the Bodhisattva's point of view, living beings, we are like that. It's hard to get us to go the right direction for longer than 5 minutes before we get confused, we get distracted, we get lured away, we forget, So Bodhisattva is like, yep, that's them, that's who I'm teaching. Get to work, it's how hard it is. Number 10, anointing on the crown with the king's blessing. That's the 10th stage. And this, we spent a lot of time talking about this thing called anointing on the crown. Guanding it's called. And it's consecration, another way to say it. And I told the story of going over to St. Mary's Cathedral in downtown San Francisco, and who was getting anointed on the crown? It was the auxiliary bishop of San Francisco, John Wester, who went from priest to bishop. He was called the auxiliary bishop, which was a special role in the Roman Catholic hierarchy of San Francisco and California. And it was a wonderful experience to see these cardinals and archbishops come up and from various places in the U.S. and prepare him, have him bow, prostrate his body on the ground, and to put a collar around him and then drip oil on his head and say, to say the right words to welcome him into the College of Bishops. So how amazing that was, because I was watching this go on, I thought, wow, I didn't realize that Roman Catholics still kept this alive just the way Buddhists do. How neat is that? And to discover then later that many, many traditions, many cultures, many civilizations worldwide, from Egypt to the Middle East, so Islam preserves it, and France anoints the crowns of the emperors, Russia anointed the crown of the king, and there we go. And here in our 10th stage, on the 10 stages chapter, the Bodhisattva, as he is about to become called the Dharma Prince, gets anointed on the crown with the water of wisdom. And with that, now we mentioned that it may be symbolically referring to, externally, something that happens inside, where the two meridians of the back, the Ren, and the front, the Du, the two meridians connect. And there's an internal wisdom process. If you want to translate this into yogic terms, maybe, something like that, possibly. But in any case, cultures worldwide keep this alive. And here on the 10th stage, our Bodhisattva has this happen. And it's like, whoa, this is the Avatamsaka Sutra in our body. Here's our awakened being getting anointed, getting initiated, getting consecrated to step into the preparation stage for Buddhahood. All such treasures of virtue are gradually made immaculate. So, treasures of virtue. What is virtue in this language? Virtue is character. This is you as a person. It's not magic. It's not witchcraft. It's not superstition. It's kindness, right? It's patience. It's goodness. Simple human qualities that everybody has to enact or not as we choose to. This is the daily stuff of who we are as people that leads us to the Bodhisattva's exalted state. Virtues made immaculate are the Bodhisattva's qualities. So from the most human, the daily, everyday stuff, we cultivate out an awakened being. If there were no living beings, no Bodhisattva would ever accomplish Anuttara Samyak Sambodhi, the highest wisdom. Therefore, says the sutra, Bodhi depends on living beings. Even though we're mostly dense thickets, if it weren't for those dense thickets, there wouldn't be any Dharma to transform living beings to Bodhisattvas. Okay, one more stanza. Let's do something, break up this talk. We're going to come back. We have one more to go, but I wanted to do a palate cleanser here because I want to say next door to Queensland, New South Wales, is locked down yet again, the entire state. People they don't know what to do. Our friend Aussie Man came up with a wonderful test of Australian slang. He said, "What do Australians mean when they say, 'I'm off to Woolies to get some sani and some bog roll before the ISO'? I'm off to Woolies to get some sani and bog roll before the ISO. Anybody translate that into ordinary English? I'm going to Woolworths to get some hand sanitizer and toilet paper before we lock down. I'm off to Woolies to get some sani and bog roll before the ISO. Yeah. It's not fun to lock down. It's even less fun to get COVID-19 Delta variant. But that's our reality, isn't it? So, what do? Janice Ian, bless her heart, during the original COVID infestation, was gifted with a song. It just came to her while she was doing her laundry. And she passed it around the world and invited everyone who cared to take the song and do their own version. And let's see, now that I've advertised it, I want people to go find it. The Better Times Project. Better Times. Janice Ian. There's her original, Better Times, willcome.com. There it is. It's now a website. Maybe pass that around. Better Times Will Come Project, Janice Ian and Friends. Hundreds of videos were made. Sheet music lyrics, coloring pages, coloring books were made for kids. Music is not about perfection. It's about getting through the hard times and celebrating the good, says Janice. Anyway, my friend Steve Boffman told me that they could use a version in Chinese, and so you'll find Heng Shi's version out there on Better Times Project. But here it is, and the song actually helps. It really does help get us through. So I want to do this now before we do our last verse. Ready? Here we go. You can only, as they say, it'll do you no harm. Just try it. Better times will come. better times will come. When this world learns to live as one, oh, better times will come. 明天会更好，明天会更好，世界和谐，心大同，明天一定会更好。When we greet each dawn without fear, knowing loved ones soon will be near. When the winds of war cannot blow anymore, oh, better times will come. 面对困难毫不畏惧，亲朋好友不离不弃。刀藏入库，马放南山，明天一定会更好。Here you go, your turn. Better times will come. Better times will come. When this world learns to live as one, oh, better times will come. Though we live each day as our last, we know someday soon it will pass. We will dance, we will sing in that never-ending spring. Oh, better times will come. 生死转瞬一息之间，黑暗夜晚幻变白天。感恩心生大地回春，明天一定会更好。This time in Chinese. 明天会更好，明天会更好，世界和谐，心大同，明天一定会更好。Better times will come. Better times will come. This world learns to live as one. Oh, better times will come. Oh, better times will come. We even, in the process of getting that together, we even came up with a Chinese sign language version of that song. So luckily we had some friends who were able to connect with sign language signers in China who heard the song, put it out. And the sign language version became as popular or more popular than the banjo version. So, all right, one more verse before we end our chapter. We ready? Last one. 十方国度虽微尘，十方国度虽微尘，可于一念知其数，可于一念知其数，毫末度空可知量，毫末度空可知量，一劫说辞不可尽，一劫说辞不可尽。Countries of the 10 directions might be pulverized into dust. Countries of the 10 directions might be pulverized into dust. Yet that number could still be known in an instant of thought. Yet that number could still be known in an instant of thought. Using the tip of a hair, one could measure all of space. Using the tip of a hair, one could measure all of space. But speaking for kotis of eons, one could never finish this stage. But speaking for kotis of eons, one could never finish this stage. Okay, this is a standard summary, it's a closing line, it's a refrain that comes up in sutras a lot, where it's a comparative impossibility, right? What Vajra Treasury Bodhisattva is saying as he sums up is, I've only given you a little bit, there's this infinite. What I could say is infinite, I've only given you a little bit. How infinite? You might take lands of 10 directions, north, south, east, west, intermediate, above and below, pulverize them into dust, and count the number of particles of dust. You could still know that number, you could name it, you could know it in an instant of thought. Okay, hold that in mind. Or you could take a single hair, tiny hair, take the tip of that hair and use it as a reference point to then measure how much space there is. Say, okay, my hair tip is this big and space is infinitely vast. Is that possible? No. Are you going to know how many dust motes there are in a single thought of lands crushed into dust? No. However, those things could still be known. If those things could be known, the end of the 10 stages, the 10th stage in particular, can't be known. It's still going on. There's more. There's more. There's more. There's more to say. A koti of eon, this is a ijie, this is a number. That's a Sanskrit word meaning many, right? For many eons. How many years in one eon? Oh my goodness, too long. How many kotis of eons? Infinite, too many. You could explain it all that time, you'll never finish talking about the 10th stage. There we are. That's it. Hubba hubba. Standard disclaimer, that's a disclaimer. It's kind of like not my best work, right? That kind of disclaimer. Bodhisattva politely lets us know that he has he's done an incomplete job. He's kind of apologizing. It's not, I haven't done my best because I haven't given you all of it, but you know what? Can't. Too much of it. Very graceful and elegant kind of summary. It's kind of the chorus, the tagline at the end of the sutra, like a chorus at the end of a song where he's saying, that's it. If you want it, what do they say in folklore? If you want any more, you sing it yourself, right? That's all I can do for now. If you want any more, you can sing it yourself. It's still going on. Okay, and now I wanted to say, this is, for the translator's sake, I'll just leave it on the screen here. What we have in the 10th stage is the success story. This is the end of the search. This is the Grail. The Grail has been found, discovered. This is the Xanadu. This is the Shangri-La. And the Buddha nature, with all its spectacular qualities, is revealed. Your Buddha nature, uncovered, brilliant, shining, is now revealed in the 10th stage. The human mind, once it has been cleansed of ignorance, this is the celebration of the bright side, the wonders of the mind ground when fully revealed. Okay? That's what the 10th stage is. And you kind of lose sight of that because you're just constantly saying how wonderful, how amazing, how inconceivable is the mind when it's cultivated to this level. It's a human perfection on the page. But for people, monastics who became disciples of Master Hsuan Hua, and I'm going to say every awakened, skillful, good and wise advisor throughout history, the lived experience was very different. Around Master Hua, what was it like? We heard about the dark side. the yin side of the hill, the shade side of the hill, the frailties of the human mind. Shifu, on one hand, at night in the sutra, would display for us the Bodhisattvas' incredible accomplishments. And then, during the day, as the student, you were constantly confronted with your own, I'm going to add a line here, with your own greed, your desires, your false thoughts, your jealousy, your dishonesty, your competition for position in the monastery, your fault-finding, your backbiting, your schism-making in the society of the Sangha. All these things that Shifu saw us doing and then brought to our attention the way a father disciplines his children. How interesting, right? This was the compassionate teacher at his most vigorous, and also a demonstration of the principles of cultivation according to the Mahayana Bodhisattva's path. For example, our Buddha nature is brilliant and shiny, but it's covered by ignorance and delusion. The process of cultivation, the experience of Gold Mountain Monastery, the city of 10,000 Buddhas, under the teaching and the kindness of Master Hsuan Hua, was to bring us back over and over to methods that remove the darkness, which he said, xi qi mao bing, our habits and our faults, which the Buddha said are poisons, dense thickets. Let's do another one. He called them get my fingers right. There we go. Dense thickets that we fall into during our daily social interactions. For example, the 10 evil deeds, right? That was what we heard about during the day. By emphasizing those faults and bringing us back, and you could say rubbing our nose in our own faults, Master Hua was compassionately, but often painfully, giving us the high road to Buddhahood, nothing less. If instead he said, oh, let's all get enlightened, you're probably enlightened already, you just don't know, we're all Buddhas already, but he didn't help us clear away the dirt and actually doing the work of cleansing the mirror, he would have been increasing affliction without removing its cause. So, what am I saying? We're looking at the 10 Stages chapter, the incredible accomplishments of a bodhisattva, but don't lose sight of the path to that bodhisattva stage, the 10 stages, which is cultivation. Master Hua's constant laser beam focus in his own mind of the bright awakened nature showed him when we disciples covered that nature in ourselves like clouds blocking the sun, confusion over and over again, how hard it would be to be the teacher and to say, just cultivate, just look within, don't seek outside. He took the trouble, and notice this, he risked our, quote, dislike of him or his unpopularity. He was willing to be the bad guy to point out over and over the habits and the faults that we clung to and that covered us, because why? He wanted us to succeed. The road to Buddhahood goes through the dense thicket and the poison of my mind. Notice that by doing this, he was, as a teacher, not the modest, humble, polite Chinese man who, faced with tall, privileged Caucasians, masters of our universe, the dominant culture, fully at home in the culture of the United States, he could have deferred and made us happy, sought our approval from the rich white kids and the middle American families, who were at home in America. He was not. He took us on. He called us on our failures. He said, you don't even understand how to be a human. You walk away from your parents. How can you not be filial and still expect to be a Buddha? He rebuilt us from the inside out fearlessly. He sacrificed being liked. He said, I don't care if you like me. The only thing I care about is that I won't be true. I have to tell you the truth whether or not you like me, he said. Popularity is not my goal. Making you wake up is my goal. Making you into Buddhas. He taught living beings. He sculpted bodhisattvas and sages from living human flesh and blood and ignorance. Once you volunteered to study with him, and only if you committed, right? Once you commit to take the precepts and the vows and to take refuge, then didn't matter if you're Chinese, if you're Western, if you're Vietnamese, Native American, African American, Hispanic American, didn't matter. Gender didn't matter. Shifu would teach you according to your nature, to your state of mind, and whatever attachments you're bringing forth, you're clinging to today. He didn't teach us according to social status or race or wealth or gender. Some of us, myself foremost, were scolded harshly. People used to say, "Oh, Fa Shi, don't worry, Shifu is Panzi Chenglong." You have to kind of beat the child to turn him into a dragon. Yeah, but the pan, I can Chenglong, but the pan, the beating was literal sometimes, because I have thick skin. I learn slowly, I'm stubborn and proud, right, arrogant. Others, he encouraged and taught subtly by giving them a difficult project and letting them run with it, and then saving them at the last minute before it would get disaster, and letting them learn from their own mistakes. Others, according to their nature, right? Shifu was not the model minority Asian. He was fierce. He was uncompromising. He taught the Dharma. He defended tradition. He championed the precepts. And yet, the daily teaching of it was just like a grandpa, a kind-hearted grandfather who wanted his children to succeed and would do anything to get us to wake up to what we were doing to ourselves when we broke those precepts, forgot the Dharma, and covered over our nature, right? How hard it is to be a real teacher when you yourself see the light of the nature and understand these, these people who don't know take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and 2 steps forward and 1 step back. So as we read the Avatamsaka and look at the highlights of the human mind at its brightest, as we marvel at the awe-inspiring virtues of wisdom and compassion, as it said, right? The sutra just said, the virtues revealed. Understand that the path to those peaks dips first into the poisoned valleys of greed, anger, and delusion. The light of wisdom arises from the darkness of ignorance. The Bodhisattva triumphs over his or her confusion and false thinking before he or she masters expedient wisdom. Right? The Avatamsaka is the story of how light conquers darkness after the false yields to the truth. So, example of that was, I remember, I was thinking of, tell a story. I was thinking of, I was a new monk, and I thought that I had, really good Chinese when I arrived. And we went to the airport, San Francisco airport, and we were going to greet a delegation coming from China to do something historic. We're going to bring a ceremony that hadn't been done in the U.S. before. So there we were, sitting in the arrival lounge, San Francisco airport, and the habit, the false thought and the habit and the shi qi and the maobing, the blindness that I brought with me to the Sangha was a love for fame. Hao Ming, Ming Yu. Fame doesn't, wanting to be famous maybe, but it means popularity often, just wanting to be liked and thinking that was the valuable thing, was to be popular, to have a lot of people know my name and to be friendly with everyone and smile and laugh and please people, That was how you got votes, and I was into student politics as a student. And so I had that habit. Xi, qi, habitual energy. Just do this repeatedly without even being aware that this runs the opposite direction of cultivation. Every time you smile at somebody to get them to like you, you're turning your back on your own wisdom, on your own nature, which doesn't have a face, doesn't have a smile, doesn't have a look or a self to like. It is like a garden that you're nurturing the growing plants according to the Tao, according to the Dharma, how nature and the planet raise crops from the ground. As soon as you turn your back on the crops and go out, partying, your garden dries up. It doesn't get, the weeds come in, right? So looking for pleasure, looking for popularity, looking for praise for how smart you are and how nice you are, you're completely basing it on a false self. You're confusing other people who think that you like them, when in fact you just want them to like you, and so you're willing to smile or them so that they'll like you. It's called phony. It's phony. And I didn't understand that at all. I carried that right into being a monk. And so here we are, San Francisco Airport, and here come the TV cameras. Master Hua had instructed me to let the press know that here was a delegation of Chinese Buddhist monks coming to San Francisco, big thing. And so he had me send out the press release to see if if Channel 4 or Channel 2 would come from San Francisco to film this. And so there they were, and here come the reporters and the cameras, and of course my radar, ding, 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 ding. Oh, here they come right away. And sitting with Master Hua beside him, waiting for the plane to arrive. And so Master Hua's looking at me like that, and I'm the familiar Caucasian face there. So the reporter comes up, doesn't hand Master Hua the microphone to have him explain, but goes to me because I'm the American monk, right? They say, well, tell us about what's about to happen here. I understand there's a delegation from China coming. And I am stepping right into it and smiling and going to answer the questions, And Master Hua booms out and he says, tell them how you're confused by desire. Tell them how much you want them to like you. and it's my job to translate. And I'm like, it's just like popping a balloon. He says, this is my useless disciple who likes to be popular, he says. and I said, ask your questions of him. So they go over and say, oh, yes, well, the teacher, the elder, okay. And they ask, the reporter says, tell us what's going on. Shifu, this is a historic moment, delegation of China. Then he looks at me, translate. So I'm like, this is a historical moment, So what he did was catch my habitual energy of seeing a camera, seeing a chance to show my face and to be smart, completely forgetting cultivation, completely forgetting the Dharma. And in his inimitable style, just embarrassing me on live television, right? So that everyone watching Channel 4 that day could see that I'm the monk who likes to be popular. And he didn't care. He wanted me to recognize my mind had run out into the dust. It's called turning your back on enlightenment and mingling with the dust, outflowing into desire to want my phony self to be famous, right? Only a teacher who understands and who really wants you to wake up could know what I had done. I had abandoned my own mind and gone out into the lights of fame. What a lesson, But he, sure, embarrassed his disciple on live television in San Francisco. You bet. I remember it to this day. What a lesson. Priceless, So it takes a real teacher to know when the student's mind has abandoned Bodhi and run into samsara, into birth and death, right there. each according to their desires. So, yeah. The path to the 10th stage of the Bodhisattva is populated with abandoned desires, hard-earned. It's the dense thicket of living beings' minds and the brilliant, lofty peak of the Bodhisattva's wisdom. So, Ami Tofo. So, what's coming up next? What I wanted to share was we have retranslated that first stage, the stage of happiness, Fanshi Di, and made it accessible for recitation in English. And to my mind, to my knowledge, this hasn't been done maybe ever before, that the 10 stages of the flower garland have been prepared as a recitation text in English so we can approach sutra as literature, so that we can look at the text from start to finish. This is the first stage so far. And read it for the ideas, read it for the principles, read it for the story, read it for the images in English, flowing through. I don't think that's been done before. Even as we lecture on it, we go line by line, image by image, story by story. We don't read the whole thing. And it's easy to forget that this is, in fact, originally, what is it? It's Vajra Treasury speaking for the Bodhisattvas in the audience, right? So we're going to have it ready for next week, and it may take, not quite sure how we're going to structure it, so it's not just me reading. We'll have it on the screen. Maybe invite people to read along, but it's going to be English. We'll also provide the Chinese text for the translators so they can hear it too. But I know when the Chinese, when we do recite the Avatamsaka Sutra every year. We do it in the spring. It's a wonderful practice to do. It takes 21 days to get the whole sutra done. But the process is tok 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 ru shi wo wan yi shi fo dai shi wei go qi shu ji gu du yan yu da bi ju sang qian er bai wu shi ren ju. People tell me that only after they met it in English did they start to comprehend. Did it start to sink in? Could their mind chew on it and actually hear it and inhale it like oxygen? So this will be a first, and we might read a bit and then listen to banjo music briefly to kind of give some variety. But anyway, that's the plan. That's what we're going to do. And it's an experiment. After we may just do that first stage to give a flavor of it. If we did the whole text, it would take weeks and weeks of reciting, that's not all that stimulating for people who want to go more deeply. But anyhow, so we'll have a chance to look at sutra as literature next week, maybe 2 weeks to get done. We'll see how it goes. I'll time it this week and see how fast we can get it done. But it's going to be a first, and I want to welcome everybody and encourage you to come and try it out with us, take part. All right. We're going to transfer merit with 2 different songs. One we're going to transfer today, the entire series, with our May Every Living Being transference first. Then we're going to continue with our Medicine Buddha mantra, because COVID, Delta variant, and the original COVID are cruel, and people are dying and suffering long distress, even after healing from the infection. So we want to keep our Medicine Buddha mantra going. All right? Before we do that, I'm going to ask Jinchuan Shi to tell us what's going on at the Berkeley Buddhist Monastery so we can take a look at upcoming events. Jinchuan, do you want to tell us about it?
Yes, I can do that. So we have to go to the Berkeley Monastery website. And just to reiterate, our morning chanting is now at 4 a.m. But you can still watch the recording on YouTube if you want to do it at 5 a.m. as we had before. We're continuing with our morning Dharma reflection and 3 steps, 1 vow. That's from 7:15 to 8. And people were hoping that to continue. And it's been such a wonderful practice every day. We thought, let's keep it going. And we also have a number of men coming to cultivate at Berkeley Buddhist Monastery. So you'll see more men bowing together, which is nice. And Yoshika is actually right next to me here. Good? Yeah. Yeah. Jingwei Shi is actually down in Burma Vihara. They're putting some finishing touches on the work that's being done there. Amitabha recitation from 12:30 to 1. That's led by Dharma Master Jingfo. And we have a regular evening ceremony and mantra heart as well. Now, a couple of upcoming events that people should know about is that August 28th, 2 weeks from now, 6:30 to 7:30 a.m. This is Pacific time. We will have the Ulambana ceremony at BBM. You can see all the text in the ceremony there. And then following that, we will have a week of Amitabha recitation. And so from August 28th to September 3rd. And if you like, you can also put up some memorial plaques for loved ones or people you care about, so forth. There's a link there to do that. We can take out the interfaith blood drive. That's already finished. And then we have the Great Compassion dedication of merit, the last Sunday of each month. So that will be August, the 29th, August 29th. So that's the current program. We just started our student orientation, our DRBU, or as I say, we just finished our new student orientation DRBU, and our fall semester will begin next week. So that's also very exciting.
Yeah, DRBU is coming into the autumn semester. All right, thank you for that. We're good. Here's our dedication of merit. And let's see here. I also want to bring up medicine. Medicine Buddha mantra. We'll also pop that up here. Okay. So now this is our familiar dedication of merit, and it's an opportunity for everybody to transfer today's sutra assembly, merit, and also, if you'd like to, those of you who've been with us from the start, some people online today have never missed a lecture. How wonderful. There's a lot of goodness that comes from looking into these ancient texts, seeing how they interact with our contemporary minds and nature. So please do make a wish, send that merit out with your mind, which is a powerful implement, a powerful tool that can touch minds worldwide. Make that gift of goodness and see how many worlds we can heal. Tikkun olam, healing the world. Here we go. Please make that wish. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may our minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. sinners find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of our endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. As Mr. Spock would say, may it be so. Medicine Buddha's mantra for anointing the crown of the head. This is indeed what we were talking about, the Guanding, right? This is called the Yao Shi Guanding Zhenyan. Medicine Buddha's true words for anointing the crown of the head, just like our Bodhisattva on the 10th stage. So here we are, and let's recite it 3 times and send it out to neutralize this virulent, nasty virus that turns ordinary air into something lethal and fatal. Okay, you do it, make a wish. Last chance, here we go. Love that banjo sound. Okay, here is an image, and we can, if you choose to, you can join me in bowing 3 times to the Buddhas. This is the city of 10,000 Buddhas. Before the 10,000 Buddhas were installed, but there it is. So make 3 bows. Second bow. Third bow. And I have an image of Master Hua right here. I'd like to invite you to make 3 bows if you care to. Bow in respect to the Venerable Master. See you all next week. Stay healthy. Amitofo. Bye-bye.